Hey everyone, and welcome back to another World of Warcraft video. Is World of Warcraft worth coming back to now, in early 2018? Legion absolutely is in its twilight months, yet you wouldn't really think that based on what we've seen online. Now, I figure that you've came across this video because you're vaguely interested in checking the game out again, whether you quit shortly after Legion launched, or even if you missed out the expansion entirely. So what we're going to do here is work through everything that you need to know to answer that question. First though, let's fight some demons. Demons in your head. All of Legion's stacking progression systems created a perception that it's a very alt-unfriendly expansion. Well, as someone with max level for every class and spec, let's talk about that. So if you want to play a character and see the content on that character, you are 100% fine. You'll probably have a bit of a laugh at how fast artifact weapons level up, and then relics are really easy to get, especially since the Argus world quests prioritize them. Then, with the relinquished gear getting between 910 and 930 is really easy, and then things like the Class Order Hall campaigns and 7.2 quests, they're no longer needed for core progression. However, getting set gear and getting a perfect set of legendaries, that's a bit more challenging, and that really will only be a roadblock though for those of you who want to high-end raid. But to be honest, if you're watching this video, I don't think you're necessarily into high-end raiding. Now all this is fine, but what if you feel like you've missed out and you'd sort of be jumping into the final chapter of a story without reading the middle? Well, with Legion, you've got nothing to worry about. Patch 7.2 pretty much had no story outside of the raid, which of course you can do on LFR, or you can watch Nobble's recap video. In short, patch 7.3 is a natural starting point for the Legion content that actually matters. Okay, so now that we've cleared this up, is it worth coming back to Legion? What's there for you? Let's begin with the leveling revamp. So by adding a scaling system, they've made it so that you no longer outlevel zones, so the zone pretty much scales to your character's level. This means that you've got far less traveling times and a more condensed story. Overall, the leveling times aren't that much longer, they are a bit longer, but the time is shifted away from traveling and towards actually playing the game. This is ideal for people who have not really seen most of the world and they want to go back and actually get sort of the world of Warcraft and enjoy it in a different way to the end game sort of way that you normally play World of Warcraft. And I suppose in the modern day with level boosts, it's also a great chance for someone who's only used boosted characters to actually see what else is out there. This also ties into the allied race stuff nicely. First, unlocking allied races requires a fair amount of end game gameplay. There are 4 factions to max out rep with and a number of storylines to finish. Now, for the most part, the quest content there is good, but the reps still are a little bit of a grind. That is a grind that you will probably be best, you'll be best doing that now rather than the first months of Battle for Azeroth, when you'll be a bit more concerned about that expansion's endgame. So it's probably worth thinking about unlocking those allied races. So once you've got allied races unlocked, of course, that pairs in perfectly with the level revamp. It's essentially just the ideal time to do that, of course, doubly so for the allied races because hitting 110 manually with them does unlock the Heritage Armor set. Now let's move on from the leveling related content because there's a lot to do with Legion itself. Now most of this can be done at any time, but now is pretty much as good a time as any. Each class has its own Order Hall quest line, and you'll want to complete that to unlock bits of your class Order Hall set, and of course do the other requirements for the Order Hall set. This gear is pretty much, it is a recolor of the Mists of Pandaria challenge mode stuff, which can no longer be obtained, so it's definitely nice to have. Now, while we're on the topic of the class Order Halls, well, after completing the class Order Hall quest line and then doing the unfortunately rather dull patch 7.2 quest achievements, you will be able to do your class mount quest. The quests are pretty good, and the mounts, of course, are really cool as well, so that's worth doing. Then each of the 36 artifacts has its own, what's called a hidden skin. They're not really hidden though, you just need to go over to the Wowhead article and find out how to get them. Unfortunately though, some of them do rely on particular world bosses being active, which kind of sucks. Then the final piece of the artifact puzzle is the hardest one, getting your Mage Tower skins. There are 36 of these to get, of course, one for each artifact weapon, and they are rewarded from defeating the specific Mage Tower challenge. These are mostly designed to be hard in terms of actually both gear and skill, but the whole thing is you actually do need to learn the mechanics of the fights. Some of them are more fun than others, some can be outgeared more than others. Overall though, it's a pretty good challenge. Now getting a character to 920 or 930 via relinquished gear will put you in a good place to do these. You won't be over gearing them that much at this level, because item level isn't everything. After all, a raider in April of 2017 with a lower eye level, but ideal legendaries and set gear and stats, they'd be super powerful, so don't worry too much about the item level stuff. Now, the Mage Tower rewards cannot be earned after Legion, so you've likely got about 6 months to work in this one. Then the only other time-limited reward that you really have to worry about is the Argus Heroic mount, so I'd of course recommend working towards that. Now, there are some of the things that I would recommend doing. The Chromie Challenge is pretty fun, as is the treasure hunt that is involved with unlocking the Lucid Nightmare mount. There's also some other mounts like the Riddler's Mindworm or the High Mountain Archaeology mount, which you can also hunt down. Another thing that I will personally be doing is turning all of my characters into basically patch 7.3 optimized passive gold making machines through class order halls. You can check out an old version of that, here, but I'll do a new one at some point. Now, there's a fair amount to do here, and it's probably enough to cover 1 to 3 months of casual gameplay, depending on how many characters you have. But finally, let's just talk about the content itself. So, if you hopped off the Legion train at launch, what's actually waiting for you? What's new? Well, there's the patch 7.1 Suramar campaign. That will take about 2 hours, perhaps 3. There's the patch 7.2 storyline, though it really doesn't have much narrative. It's just a bunch of regular quests to clear through, but still you'll want to do that to unlock the class mount quest, which typically is less than 30 minutes. With all that done, then you're off to Argus. Argus is probably 2 to 3 hours of quest content. It's pretty solid in quality for the most part. And if you want to continue the story, then of course from Argus you'll be hopping into Antorus and LFR. So in terms of the narrative stuff, there's probably like a weekend of dabbling in it. So let's get on to recommendations. If you are not interested in any of the unlocks that I mentioned, and you're also not interested in the leveling revamp, I would not recommend picking up World of Warcraft until Battle for Azeroth is in its pre-patch. That pre-patch will likely bring a new event for you to enjoy, and then the remaining Legion story content can be mopped up during that 1 month of subscription before the new expansion actually comes out. However, if you do want to go and work in those Mage Towers and do a whole bunch of those unlocks, there actually is quite a lot of stuff there for you to do, so I'd say it's a pretty good time to come back to the game. In fact, with Legion, because of the way Legion itself was constructed and also the leveling revamp, I think it probably is in a far more healthy point at this stage of its life than really any previous expansion, especially because you've got things like the Mythic Plus system, which they really scale in terms of their difficulty to pretty much always be relevant. So, there you go, that's my thoughts on whether World of Warcraft is worth coming back to. If you're interested in what class you want to play, if you want to check out a new one, I've finished my Legion class review series, and I'm also doing some early looks at the new Battle for Azeroth classes, so you can check that stuff out, which you might enjoy. But other than that, thank you very much for watching this video, and I'll see you next time.